I had a great life. I mean, a wonderful, wonderful childhood. Had everything I needed, most things I wanted. I really liked the effect that alcohol had on me. This must be how everyone else lived. And I was able to carry myself the way I wanted and talk to people the way I wanted, and I felt like I finally fit in. 9/11 kind of happened in that time. I had a lot of close friends whose uncles and fathers passed away. We ended up going to Manhattan and volunteering at the Javits Center, just being front and center. I was there to support my friend. Just seeing the people with the flyers. Have you seen my loved one? We were smell. You could kind of.
Oh, the smell. For me, that's the most traumatic.
I had numbed that all out. I was drinking, and I had got a job in the mortgage industry on Long Island. I went in, and drinking and cocaine and Vicodin were like encouraged. You want to sound good on the phone? Like, here's what you need. It's on the table. You know, I'm wearing a suit and tie to work, driving a nice car, living this double life. Like, no one has a clue. I ended up in a psych ward. You know, now I've been to jail. Everyone was turning their back on me. My parents did a lot of work, understanding that maybe the way they showed love was actually enabling.
What were those things that you did in the beginning that were pivotal?
The humility. Understanding that I don't know anything about this. In sobriety, my natural role is this hero provider type role. I need to sometimes pause and be like, I need some help.
Green lights and blue skies are on their way. Yeah, they're on their way.
Hi, welcome to Crosstalk, the #1 recovery podcast in the universe. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Questions about recovery, we'd love to hear them. We are here today with Greg, a good friend of mine. I'm very excited. I've known him for 7 years. Welcome.
Humbling to be asked even to be a part of this, so I sincerely appreciate it. Really
yeah,
do.
I'm excited. The whole, point of this podcast is to get the message out there and show people that all walks of life can recover. So we start a little bit with, how you grew up. What did that look like? And when did you start doing all the
Getting
fun
after
stuff?
it.
Yeah.
Right. I was born in the early 80s. I grew up in New York. I had a great life. I mean, a wonderful, wonderful childhood. Had everything, as they say, everything I needed, most things I wanted. I got a little brother that I'm very close with. At first, for me, it was just like I really liked the effect that alcohol had on me.
When was the first time that you tried alcohol?
Maybe tried it here and there, but it wasn't really that I was drinking for the full effect until I was probably about 16. 15, 16, was kind of smoking weed before that. Once I felt the full effect, I said, wow, this must be how everyone else lived. I didn't really understand that I felt so out of place until I started drinking. I said, wow, this is probably how I'm meant to be feeling, and I was able to carry myself the way I wanted and talk to people the way I wanted, and I felt like I finally fit in, as they say, I felt like I've arrived. I didn't want to stop. It was like once I started drinking, it kind of took over. I had all these other interests, and I was very big into sports in high school and junior high, and I was a chameleon of sorts. I was able to fit in with the people that played sports to the people that were more on the nerdy side of school, and the kids that would smoke weed behind school at lunch, so I was able to fit in kind of everywhere, but didn't have many close friends. I didn't feel like I connected or was included, but kind of floated around from friend group to friend group, always being included in things, but never felt like I was a part of. I'm always a year behind in school because I have a late birthday. So I was always a year younger than a lot of my friends, but I would always hang out with a lot of the older people in my neighborhood. I was introduced to some of the harder drugs kind of early, during this period. I'm 16, 17, drinking every day. I lost interest in playing soccer. I dropped off the varsity soccer team, and I just kind of ran with it. I said, this is where I want to live my life. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. You know, all my goals and ambitions kind of went by the wayside. I was drinking after school and on the weekends mostly, using other substances. And, you know, I would always compare myself, right? Like, you know, I don't have a problem. You know, I was in denial. You know, I understood that this may become an issue, but I'm not worried about it. I went to a large university on the East Coast of the US, and that's when things took off.
Where did you go to school?
I went to University of Delaware. I went there for 3 semesters.
Was it a party school?
Huge.
Okay.
I joined a fraternity. Not that I'm thought of myself as a fraternity guy, but it kind of gave me this like social outlet, and I felt like it was acceptable to drink 24 hours a day, not go to class, hang out.
And you were doing other drugs at the time too?
Yeah. The cocaine had become a big issue, painkillers. This was at least before the painkillers got super popular, so to speak. So they were still very cheap, you know, drinking really cheap beer and, you know, kind of living that college life, but wasn't going to class. You know, they were these huge auditorium intro type classes where they didn't take attendance.
Right.
And in high school, everything came, especially academics, came very easy to me. You know, if I kind of paid halfway attention in high school and studied for 10 minutes, like on the way to school, I can get an A.
Oh, wow.
So when I went into college, I kind of took that same approach. I just said, I'm not going to go to class. I'll study the day of or the night before the test, but I couldn't stop drinking. So I'm drinking and doing cocaine and Adderall and while I'm studying, and basically study until I black out or pass out, and then try and go into this test. And that was like a huge wake-up call for me, because I was getting like D's and F's. And like, I was like,
It didn't look the same.
No. So I became like quickly discouraged with college. My father was always like a big proponent of education, so I felt like I really let him down. After 3 semesters, my GPA was so bad that I had no choice. I didn't quite fail out, but like I would have been on like
Close
an
enough.
8-year plan.
Right. Got it.
To get enough credits to kind of graduate. And I had ultimately left college. I didn't decide to return for my 4th semester, and I moved back home, and I enrolled into a community school on Long Island, just kind of meandering through life still. Like I couldn't put down the booze. There were other substances.
Was that easier, that school? You could kind of sail through?
So much easier. Again,
Right.
like it went back to like, it was like high school again, where I didn't study. I had to go to class because they took attendance, but I was getting A's again. So I was kind of like getting my confidence back a little bit, but like still I had no direction. I was pretty miserable at this time, you know, because I had these kind of ideas of what I wanted to do with my life, and the whole thing became derailed. And it was nothing more than a function of I couldn't stop drinking, using other substances. You know, 9/11 kind of happened in that time. I had a lot of close friends whose uncles and fathers passed away during 9/11, and it was very in your face because we were right there. And I had a friend of mine whose uncle was a firefighter, and no one can get a hold of him. So the night of, we ended up going to Manhattan and volunteering at the Javits Center, which was right up kind of the West Side Highway, and just being front and center. It was like, it was traumatic now that I look back on it. I don't think it really had an effect, because I was there to support my friend more than anything. And just seeing, you know, the people with the flyers, have you seen my loved one? It was awful. The smell, you could kind of...
Oh, the smell. For me, that's the most traumatic thing.
Smoke was still, like, if the wind blew right, you know, it was kind of in our face. And they had the cadaver dogs that were kind of stationed there. They were doing 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And just seeing everything was kind of a lot for me. But I had numbed that all out. I was drinking and again, using these other substances. And, you know, kind of fast forward, I then I enrolled into another school and was able to graduate just barely, a small college up in upstate New York. And, you know, after that, I had graduated, and like I remember like waking up the next day and like, now what do I do with my life?
Right.
Like I have no idea. And I had got a job in the mortgage industry on Long Island. And like I went in and drinking and cocaine and Vicodin were like encouraged. It was like, you want to sound good on the phone? Like, here's what you need. It's on the table.
Wow.
Yeah, it was eye-opening. So like, you know, I had like graduated. Now I have this job, and I was interested. You know, I got a degree in economics, but I was interested in kind of all financial markets, and you know, this happened to kind of be on the fringes of, I guess, the financial markets that I was interested in. So I was interested, and so I looked up to these guys. You know, they were driving Porsches, and
Yeah.
you know,
It looks luxurious.
it looked great, you know, but they didn't have $10 to put in the tank. Like they were broke. Like they were borrowing money from us. Like it was a wild scene. You know, I don't know if it was quite Wolf of Wall Street, but like it was interesting. It was close. You know, there's a lot of nonsense, a lot of after work debauchery and get-togethers.
Yeah.
And, the FBI showed up one day and kind of shut it all down. I didn't really have enough insight.
Were they scamming people? Or you don't really
still don't know.
Yeah.
I still don't know, but apparently there was something
was going on.
that was going on.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, you know, now it went from like me hiding my usage to totally being open and in front of everyone and not hiding behind it. And I was like under the impression that like these successful people, these people I look up to, are using this as a tool to kind of better their financial situation.
Right.
More than anything. I didn't work there kind of long enough to understand the intricacies of maybe what they were doing correct and what they weren't doing.
Yeah.
That was so,
it sounds like they weren't doing much correct.
No.
Couldn't put gas in their tank,
No,
and then they got
no.
shut down by the FBI. You know.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, when the housing market crashed in 2008, like we were basically selling these loans that led up to this catastrophe. You know, we were selling, there was no doc stated loans. People would come in, I'd say, write your income on this piece of paper. And we didn't require bank statements or employment or how much you made. It was like, I was like, I don't know, how could this be right? And ultimately in 2008 we saw.
You know, I got a mortgage when I was 17. I don't know how that can be right, but if Citibank is giving me.
Right. There's a movie, The Big Short.
Okay.
And it kind of goes into, you know, people had 6-7 houses, like, and you were making $50,000 maybe, you know.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, they were giving loans out for anyone who applied, basically. So, you know, that fizzled out quick. And again, I'm back to square zero. Like, I do have this education, I do have this drinking problem and drug problem.
And how old are you about this time?
Probably 22 or 23.
Okay. Oh, so you're still young, and so what does it exactly look like at this time?
I'm living with a friend, actually, and we're just kind of, you know, he's doing something else, and you know, I don't have a job at this point, and I'm living with him, and we have a friend that moves in to this condo, and he ends up basically paying rent in 𝗥𝘁𝗃. He said,
"Oh wow."
Yeah, he's like, he's a drug dealer. He's like, I can pay you in cash. I can pay you in drugs, and we're like, take drugs.
Okay.
And so I get quickly hooked on opiates, very quickly. You know, this is when the 𝗥𝘁𝗃 and the blues, I guess, come around, and they're still relatively cheap. And before I know it, I have a full-blown opiate addiction.
Wow.
And at this time now, I'm working in the insurance industry for a large insurance brokerage, and you know, I'm wearing a suit and tie to work, and driving a nice car still, and going to work and living this double life. Like no one has a clue what's going on.
Okay, and you were able to put gas in your car though.
Yeah. I was making a decent living. but also had this giant now, like it's really, really getting out of control. I'm spending hundreds of dollars a day on opiates. And
Wow.
And yeah, I kind of got into, I was working with a friend who was running he was an illegal bookmaker, sports betting.
Okay.
And working with him, making side money with him, and no one knows. No one knows what's going on. I meet a girl during this time. I start a relationship with her. I end up marrying her. We have a baby. You know, by this time, you know, fast forward a couple of years, we own a home. We get married.
Does she have any idea about your drug addiction?
No idea.
So you were able to use hundreds and hundreds of dollars a day and keep it from her?
Keep it from her.
Wow.
And in the beginning, I mean, I met her probably in the infancy of my opiate addiction, you know,
Okay.
so in the beginning it wasn't a problem, but it was like this shell game, right? I'm moving money around, I'm taking out credit cards, I'm taking loans against credit cards, there's a lien on my house that no one knows about, I'm parking my car in the garage at this point because they're trying to repossess my car, and if my car is in the garage, the tow truck can't get it.
Right, they can't see
My lights are getting turned off, my cell phone's off every month, you know, getting turned off. And I was just able to kind of manipulate and explain my way out of a lot of these things.
it. Kind of shift Peter to Paul,
Yeah.
Mary, I don't know.
Exactly, yeah, no, it's exactly it. You know, borrowing money from my dad, coming up with these crazy ideas to get money from him. And, you know, so at this point, you know, when the financial things, it's starting to come, I guess, out in the open. People are starting to understand that something's going on. I'm losing weight. I'm not washing my clothes, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's starting to get odd.
So this like upper crust Long Island boy is just falling
Right,
apart.
falling apart.
Yeah.
I look back on pictures back then, and I looked awful. And I you know, to me, it's like, how did people not see this? You know, like, but I am so ashamed. I am so utterly ashamed that this has become my life that I could not even say, I couldn't utter the words that, you know, I had a problem. And I've always been this self-sufficient person, so it was very hard for me to ask for help. You know, I don't know if, like, doing some work kind of after I got sober, I understood that, you know, I almost didn't feel that I was worthy of help. You know, I was so low, I thought so low of myself that, you know, I felt like if I admitted to this, I would just be crushed, you know, because I was still trying to figure out how to stop
Right.
on my own.
So you knew you had a problem.
Yeah, and by this time, it was a full-blown IV heroin addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it graduated, you know, from...
And you're lucky. Back then, there was no fentanyl.
No, it was no fentanyl. It was a full-blown, you know, IV heroin addiction at this point. And I remember I had gotten fired from the brokerage. I took a job at another brokerage, and, like, they were trying to figure out, he's like, this kid's got a great resume, but the kid's a mess. Like they were
Right.
asking me some questions, like,
Right.
that I felt they had an idea something else was going on. So I came home from work one day, and I come through the door, and usually my dog greets me at the door. And I open the door, the dog's not there, and all of a sudden everyone comes out of the back like it was a
Oh, I know what that means.
intervention.
Yeah, I know what that
Full-blown
means.
intervention. My friends are there. Some of my friends that I'm using with are there, and I just remember, like, instead of, like, being able to focus on these people helping me, I'm mad at my friends because I'm like,
Right.
you guys are they're not as bad as I am, but I'm
Right.
like,
I felt the same way. I was like, how can you be pointing a finger at me?
Right. How dare you?
Right, right.
You know. But I got over that kind of quickly, and then I just said, okay. They were like, we have the place. We're going to get you some help.
And how old are you at this point?
I was, this was early 2016. You know, I was probably like 33, 34 maybe.
Okay. So that you're going to the place where we actually met.
No.
Oh.
No, we met, that was a few treatments later.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I was in and out of treatment a lot that
Okay.
year. I think we had met
End of 2016.
end of 2000. So this was very early 2016. I had my family didn't know. You know, I think my dad was doing his due diligence, trying to speak to people, kind of in this arena, so to speak. But they didn't have time. It kind of got thrown together pretty quickly. And I went to the state-run Medicaid facility in Kearny, New Jersey. Kearny's like in Newark, basically.
I know.
And it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough. And
It's
this
not
was
really where you want to be.
No. The TV's chained to the wall, and
Not a nice Long Island boy
no,
like you.
The biggest guy in the room's got the remote, and I wanted. I said, I walked. It was such an eye-opening experience. I walked into this, and I just said, yeah, this isn't for me. But I got introduced to now I know there's a solution at least. You know, some of the therapists were great there. I spent 2 weeks there. And my dad and family had found this really nice place in Connecticut to go. And I went to treatment in Connecticut. I did 3 or 4 months up there. And my wife at the time said, you got one shot at this. I'm going to give you one shot, get your act together, you come home,
Right.
and, I'll be able to oversee some of this stuff. And I come home and, without willing, I was superficially compliant. I was telling everyone the right things. Yes, I wanted to be sober. Yes, I'm willing to do anything. That wasn't the case. I was just saying whatever I needed to say to get out of there, because I just was like, it wasn't for me. I didn't want it.
Right.
I was doing this for everyone else by this point. And I got home and...
It's so funny how we know we have a problem, we're miserable, we're offered a solution, yet we argue to the nines.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. That's substance abuse in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
I pray and I pray and I pray for a solution for this to be behind me and me to be okay. And now that I'm okay, I'm dying to go back to that old life.
Yeah.
Because it's all I knew. For a long time.
You're scared. You're
Yeah,
scared to let go.
yeah,
of it.
yeah. I'm. I get sober the first time. I'm super emotional. I'm crying at
Yeah.
commercials on the TV. I can't control my thoughts. My thoughts are racing out of my head. I'm impulsive. I'm like, if this is sobriety, I don't want it.
Right.
I want nothing to do with
Your
this. I
skin
feel
is crawling,
awful. Yeah.
crawling, Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't willing to do the work.
Well, I think also in the beginning, there's the physiological aspect of it, right? Where we're withdrawing, especially from opiates. I wasn't an opiate addict, but I've heard that it's absolute hell.
Yeah, yeah. And it took a lot.
And you weren't
longer.
tapered with anything. Were you given something?
Yeah, in detox in New Jersey, I was, but I mean, to me, I was a mess. I just, I'm talking about, a decade of opiate addiction and it's 30 days later and they're telling me I should be okay and I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So I'm back at home. My wife had told me, you got one shot at this. And I talked myself into getting high again, going back and using. And I overdosed for the first time. And I overdosed behind the wheel, hit a tree.
IV heroin.
IV heroin. I end up in the hospital surrounded by my family. And I remember my wife being there and she just said, that's it, we're done.
Wow.
And I said, okay, fair.
Yeah.
And my first thought was now I could use how I want to.
Exactly.
What a delusion.
And you had a child at this point?
Yeah.
Or you did not? Okay.
Yeah. My daughter was born in 2015. This is 2016. She's a year old.
Are you able to show up for her at all within this year? Not really.
I was present. I was there physically. I wasn't there presently.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't in the moment. And yeah.
And that's a common thread between parents and I think that's one of the things that we try really to show people is that you can have done things that you are not happy with, you're ashamed of, and then still recover from it. And it's okay. People still love you. Your daughter will still love you. Your family will still love you. People forgive.
Yeah. It was a rough time in my life. Very. I mean, this whole thing's a rough time. But
Right.
So there I go back to treatment again. They're like, you have to go to treatment. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So I ended up in a place out in the Hamptons. And I'm there, and I get served divorce papers and a restraining order.
Okay.
Funny enough, they said, I had crashed my car. I had broken my nose, bit through half my tongue. I got stitches in my lip and the back of my head, and I can't really talk. So I'm in this treatment center kind of alone. Like, I can't even converse with the people there. So I'm kind of like this loner, like kind of just able to giggle and smile at people like an idiot,
I'm sorry. I'm laughing, but...
Yeah, no, it was rough. And I remember eating dinner, like in the, I don't know, like where they serve dinner, and the door had opened, and when the door to the dining room or dining hall opens, you can kind of see the front door, and I see two cops outside, and I said, wow, someone must have really screwed up, for the cops to be showing up in detox. And I go back to eating, and one of the counselors comes over, and they said, these cops are here for you. And I said, well, I can't really talk. I'm writing things down on a pad of paper at this point, like trying to mumble, like, why?
Yeah.
And they said, look, they're here to serve you some papers. You could either say, yes, I'll take them, or say no, and they'll find you at some later
But
date.
they can't, but technically that they can't confirm or deny that you're
Right,
there. So
right.
she's just kind of presenting
Exactly.
you with the option.
Exactly. Do
Got
you want to accept this at this point, or do you want to push this down the line and they serve you when you get out of here?
Right.
She said she knew what they were there to serve me with, and they said, I'd rather you get this information in a clinical setting with support. And
Which is smart.
made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Did you feel at the time that it made a lot of sense?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I said, let me
So at that point,
face
you're like,
the music.
my face is eaten up. Like, it's the end of the line
Yeah,
for me.
my life's
Okay.
a mess. I got kicked out of my house. I have nowhere to
Yeah.
go. My car's in impound. I have no options.
Yeah.
So I had I got served ultimately, and I spent maybe 2 or 3 more days there, and I just said, you know what? My life is so awful. I have no reason to recover. I don't care
Yeah.
anymore. And I left their AMA, and I lived on a beach out there for like 2 weeks. Just,
You AMA'd?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, still.
So you got the paperwork and you decided you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sold my wedding ring for drug money and
Okay.
spent a few, I don't know, maybe 10 days or 2 weeks living on the beach
Okay.
in the Hamptons. It made sense to me
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the time.
It would have made sense to me too.
Yeah, yeah. So finally, I accepted. My parents were calling and calling. I had shut the world out at this point. It was dark. My life was dark. And, after about 10 days of trying to survive, I just said, you know what, I'm going to accept this phone call. I reached out to my mom. 2 hours later, she had picked me up. And that's when they sent me down to Florida. And that's
Okay.
where we met.
Right.
So this 2016 was a giant mess for me, in and out of treatment, in and out of detox. They didn't tell me much about the program I was going into, but at this point, finally, I said, I think I'm ready for a change. I don't have any more options.
Right. You didn't go to the Pennsylvania part of the
No,
program. You went
no,
straight
to
like
Florida.
me.
They didn't tell me anything about it. They told me it was going to be 30 days long. They had packed a bag for me, and they said,
Right. Same.
there you go. But I remember what was wild about it is they didn't trust me to get down here. So they had hired like this sober escort to fly down to Florida with me. But I had like held my family hostage. I said, I was very sick from withdrawing from opiates by the time
Yeah.
I got back to my mom's house. And I said, I need to get high. I'm not getting on that plane like this. And I remember this giant blowout fight with my parents. Like, they're like, we're not supporting this. You're getting on that flight. We have a car service. We have the flight. We had hired this sober escort.
Right.
And I said, I'm not doing it. I said, but I will if you give me some money and give me your car, and so I can go drive and get what I need to get on that plane.
Yeah.
And finally, the sober escort said, if he's not willing to get on the plane, let's do it. Let's just let him, give him
Yeah.
money, and if that's the only way he's going, he'll go. And I
That's
did.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's so scary because, like, you can go out there and one last time and be done.
Right. I felt awful for putting my parents in that position.
Yeah.
But, like, at the time, it was like my mind was made up. Like,
Right.
I'm willing to accept the help. Then again, like, I have nothing. Look at me on paper, right? I'm kicked out of my home, divorced, restraining orders. I can't see anyone. And I still think I can call the shots.
Right, right.
You know, like, what a delusion.
Well, you got away with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
They were so desperate for you to
and I'm
get the help.
I feel really bad about putting them in that position because I don't know how I would handle that as a parent.
Yeah.
I don't.
Can't imagine.
So I did a lot.
But at this point, they don't have many choices either.
No. And I flew to Florida and entered into the program that we had met in. And again, I still don't know if I want this thing. Like, I knew this wasn't my only option. You know, kind of looking back on it, like, I get exiled to paradise, right? I'm living in this hell in New York, and they fly me down to Florida where it's gorgeous, and the place was great, and
it was freezing at the time in New York, or starting to be at least.
Yeah, and I went, okay, I'll do this, and I came down here, and I came down here with a bag that my mom had packed, you know, so I didn't pack it. There was just things thrown in it, you know, essentials. So to speak, and I came down here.
My mom packed like mini skirts and like things that didn't fit me like 3 days later.
Exactly. And you know, I came down here and kind of had to rebuild my life, you know, but I still wasn't willing to do the work. There again, superficially compliant.
Well, compliant is not the right word, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but I met.
Well, I was. We were both not
hot mess.
I was a real hot mess.
Hot mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that our whole group was a hot mess.
I remember I don't know if it was the first time I met you, but my first memory was sitting next to you at the pool.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And we were just kind of, I don't know. I think both of our egos were a little out of control at that point.
I thought I knew better than everyone there. I was like,
I think a lot of us did.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. You know, and I attribute a lot of what I have today to that program. I learned a lot. I had great guidance, great therapists. But ultimately, I don't think I was still ready. You know, there was still like this giant reservation, like, you know, maybe I'll give this 60% and see how it turns out.
Right.
You know, again, I got introduced to AA really there. I knew it existed, you know, in these other treatment centers, but they weren't 12-step based.
Right.
And God bless you.
Thank you.
And this place was. And I'm glad it was. So I got introduced.
Where we went?
Yeah, where we went. Yeah. But I was still like, you know, telling them I was doing on step 4 or 5, but I wasn't.
Right.
Tell them I had a sponsor. I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to get out of there, just trying to like get on with my life. Still trying to do it my way, you know, very much my way. And, you know, I've proven to myself time and time again that my way sucks. But I wanted to do it my way.
We still delusionally think that our way is better. Right. I mean, I really thought I knew better than the clinicians. Like, I was like, no, but let me tell you.
Yeah.
You don't know me.
Right.
You don't know me.
Yeah.
You know, meanwhile, I'm like the 10th person that stepped in the door with the same issue, you know?
Right. Still not willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And I was ashamed of a lot of things I did, and I was not willing to, I wasn't in the mind space where I was able to tackle that at the time. I was still very not feeling, I didn't know what even my feeling like myself was, you know, but I was just feeling like this alien, you know, like kind of just, I don't know, like.
I get it.
I don't know. Is this for me? Is it not for me? I know my old way sucks, but that's what I like because that's what I'm accustomed to, that chaos and that anxiety and, you know, lying with every breath I could muster, you know, It was like, that was me. That's all I knew. I didn't know this other side of me that was like trying to heal and trying to get my life together.
Can you imagine now going back to that guy?
No.
He gives chaos and anxiety.
No, not today.
I mean, I don't know about you, but one of the things I love about today is that I like run from chaos.
Yeah.
People tell me about drama, and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
don't even know.
No.
You
I
know,
stay in my
walk
lane.
away. Yeah, me too.
I stay in my
I'm
lane.
just not interested.
No, it's a waste of time for me.
Oh, it's just so much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. No, my life's peaceful.
Yeah.
It's things come up and I'm able to handle them with stride, in stride.
Yeah.
Do I still get up, kind of out of whack?
Of course.
course.
Well,
Because that
we're
person's
human
still
beings.
in me.
Yeah, of course.
But I've
Well, you were
ways to-
always that person. You just dealt with it with, drugs and
Right.
alcohol. And
Right.
now we deal with it with like coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Who knew that word?
No clue.
I
time.
remember when I was at that treatment center, they said to me like they were using all these words like maladaptive, codependent, da da da. And I remember I looked up and I looked at like this girlfriend of mine who, she was from Africa, witnessed a whole lot of
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
a whole lot of traumatic experience. And I said, was I supposed to take a class? Like I'm no idea what's happening here. She's like, oh, mama, that's okay. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. I treated it like almost like school, where I was just like, it was like homework. I'd do my homework. I'd sit in
Right.
class. Like, I don't know. I thought I was going to get graded. I don't know. I was delusional still.
Right. Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
too.
And
I thought, oh no, if I don't do this assignment, I might not graduate.
Yeah. I want my certificate of completion.
Right.
Whatever
I don't
that
think
is.
either of us got that.
No, I did not.
I didn't either.
No, and the therapist I had there saw that I wasn't, after a while, wasn't willing to do the work. I showed up to group and she said, today's your last day. You're not willing to do the work. Good luck.
Wow.
And part of me was like, wait, no, I need help.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. And part of me was like, my ego was like, you know what? I'll show you.
I thought you had AMA'd.
No, they had asked me to
Oh, I didn't know.
Move-
All I
move
know
on.
is yeah. Anyway, okay.
You're taking up space where someone who, I guess,
Yeah.
was willing to do the work.
And we've had that therapist on Crosstalk.
I know. I often attribute her to saving my life.
Yeah, me too.
She taught me no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
She taught me I don't need to explain my complete sentence of no.
I know.
And she helped me find my voice.
Yeah.
I was very much a people pleaser. I mean, I still am to a certain extent, but
Right.
I've gotten a lot better at it. I don't need to. I have boundaries today, which I
Isn't that-
didn't know it even existed.
I love boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the best always,
No.
but
yeah, they're there.
they're there.
They're in some capacity.
I say boundaries to my mom, and she goes, "Oh, boundaries." And I'm like, "What does that mean? What are you doing?" It's not a fence.
Right. I think to people in this walk of life, it means something else or something different than to other people.
So she kicks you out, and then how are you feeling? What's your next move?
I go to halfway, and again, I'm hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I still think I could live life on my rules. I stay out past curfew. I don't come home.
But you're not at this point using or doing any drugs.
No, but it's ramping up. It's on
getting
the
there.
cusp of
Right.
me, because I was acting out like all these now, character defects. Like, not that I even really addressed them, but I kind of did a little work, and I was starting to feel a little better. But I said, I'm going back to this. I hadn't made up that I was going back to my old life. I was going to try and do things again my way. And again, that just leads me to bouncing in and out of treatment centers for a year. I tried a geographic shift. I'd moved up to Washington, D.C. to live with some friends who were actively using.
I love those geographic
Yeah.
shifts. It's not you, it's
yeah,
the place.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Florida's my problem.
Right.
Ultimately we were living in D.C. with some friends who I had met at said treatment center. And,
Right. So many people have mentioned that treatment said they don't need any more press.
No.
They're doing fine.
Yeah, they're doing fine. And we had gotten into a bunch of trouble. We had it was the DEA had gotten involved.
Ooh,
And
that's
along
serious.
with DC Metro and some charges out of
I feel like that's a television show.
the last when I share in AA meetings, I say the last month of me using it could have been a movie,
Right.
and it was just so out of character for me. I say that now, but at the time it was very much in character. But yeah, the DEA, DC Metro Police, and there were charges out of Maryland, so they had the local police there, and we had our place had gotten raided by these,
Government entities.
yeah. They were looking for things that weren't there. We were still very much at fault. There was a lot of things going on at this point. And they had taken my friend to prison, ultimately. And I was...
Is this a friend that I know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God, yeah.
And so, he got some big charges and got taken away.
But now he's doing great.
Yeah, he's doing a lot better.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot better.
Good.
He'd gotten out of prison. But yeah, they had some big charges, and so I sat in that apartment for like 4 or 5 nights with his girlfriend at the time, and we were just like kind of staring at each other, like, what do we do? Like,
Right.
what an eye-opening experience. Like,
Right.
and they had searched the place, so they had turned everything upside down.
Oh, I know. They don't come back and clean up.
No, they had broken furniture. I mean,
Oh, God.
the whole place was like in shambles, and this was like very much like a metaphor for my life.
Right.
Like my life was a mess. And then I decided to come back down to Florida, because I couldn't stay there. We were like 3 months behind on rent. The FBI had like put tape on the door. It was a crime scene, and
Right.
just a mess. So I ended up back down here, and God does for me what I can't do for myself. I get arrested down here on some other charges, some possession and stuff, but felony possession,
Right.
And I had went to Gun Club, the jail in Palm Beach County, and my parents were unwilling to bail me out. I think my dad.
The best thing they could do for you, right?
My dad had even called my therapist from that treatment center, and she said, no, you should probably leave him there.
Yeah.
It's the best place for him. He's safe. You know where he is. And he probably needs a dose of reality. And honestly, and that decision saved my life. And that's why I say that therapist had saved my life, because it was that decision that ultimately came down to saving my life. I was on a warpath.
Wow.
I was going to get out and just burn the world to the ground. But I stayed in there, and I was there for, again, it's fuzzy, but I think it was like 25 or 30 days, just enough to detox in a cell without meds. Again,
Oh, painful.
it was awful. I would like, they give me some ibuprofen here and there, but that was it. I again, full-blown IV heroin addiction, flopping around on a jail cell like a fish, like just in agony. But I had finally convinced or manipulated my parents into bailing me out under these conditions, right? And these conditions were basically, we're not enabling you any longer. This is the last thing we're going to do for you, and then we have to turn our backs on you because we can't go down this road any longer. I mean, I was dragging them through this for a couple of years at this point. Longer, but they only knew what was going on for some time. And my dad said, we're going to pay for a month of halfway, and you're on your own. That's it. And everything I had owned...
That's generous.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Everything I had owned was in a car that got impounded when I got arrested and sat in impound for 30 days. And he goes, I'm not getting that car out. So everything I owned was in a car. Everything
That's locked
disappeared.
away. Yeah.
So I get out of jail. I got those jail flip-flops on that they give you. I had shorts and a T-shirt, and I had an ID. And that was it.
Wow.
I didn't have a phone. I had nothing. And I got picked up by the bail bondsman woman, and she brought me to a halfway here in Delray, and said, best of luck. It was like now I needed that. I needed to get brought
Stripped to nothing.
Stripped to nothing, and literally nothing. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from.
Wow. But halfway's being paid. So you have a roof over your head.
For 30 days.
Okay.
My
So
dad,
you better get moving.
Yeah, my dad gave me, I think, $90 on a gift card to Publix.
Oh, okay.
And he said that was it.
Wow.
I said, all right. And at
Boiled
that point,
eggs it is.
I was ready, though. At
Yeah.
that point, that's what I needed. I was ready to now do whatever it
That's the
took
best gift.
to figure my life out. Because it was either that or death. Like, I in the middle there, I failed to mention, I ended up in a psych ward. You know, now I've been to prison, or not prison, I'm sorry, jail. Everyone was turning their back on me. My parents did a lot of work in the meantime, like, you know, understanding that, like, maybe the way they showed love was actually enabling. I'm proud of them for that.
Yeah.
And they just kind of said, enough's enough. My dad, in the meantime, had bought me a burial plot in Long Island. Like, he was ready to,
Oh my God.
This is
How
it.
heavy is that?
so heavy, so heavy. Yeah, he bought me a burial plot. He just said, like, this kid's going to kill himself. And we're not going to, like, stand and watch this anymore. Yeah, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And I did the damn thing. I was, like, ready to do whatever it took. You know, I borrowed, I got a resume together. I had my buddy's cell phone on there, and I was like, if they call, you have to say I'm in the shower.
Right, right.
You know, because, like, how do I explain it over the phone?
Yeah.
You know, I had to check
I mean,
that
we're kind
box.
of lucky. We're in an area where there's so much recovery
Right.
that a lot of people are understanding,
Yeah,
actually. I
yeah.
don't think that's typical of, I'm sure it's typical of somewhere else, but it's not typical of many places.
No, and it was relative. I got a job relatively easily. I had borrowed my roommate's clothes just so I could look presentable.
So where were you working?
That's when I started working at one of the local car washes here.
Okay. I think I remember I would come and see you.
Yeah, and I was walking to work. It was, I don't know, 2-3 miles. You know, I had to walk there. I didn't have $2 to get on the bus.
Wow. Not that the buses work anyway.
No, but yeah, but I was like, you know, working. I think minimum wage back then was like $6 or $7. I was making some tips. I had some money in my pocket to buy some cigarettes at the time. You know,
Right.
like, but finally, like, now I was like super appreciative of like these small incremental wins. You know, they told me to get a sponsor, and I did. They told me
Right.
to go through the bookwork. I did.
So you finally started to do kind of what you were
Right. What they've
suggested.
been telling me to do
Yeah.
for years. You
So
know?
tell me, what were those things that you did in the beginning that were pivotal to staying sober, to learning about sobriety?
I mean, for me, it was like, you know, the humility, right? Like, understanding that I don't know anything about this. Like, you know, I've sat in these groups, but like, I didn't know anything. And I needed to come to grips where, like, I need to treat this like I don't know a thing about sobriety, and I need to learn this, like, again. Like, I had these small, you know, ideas. I knew what I should do. I knew what I probably shouldn't do. But, like, it also made me, like, this starting from scratch, so to speak, made me, like, appreciate everything that was going to come. You know,
Right.
even if it was the small stuff. Like, look, I ate today. I woke up. I wasn't sick. I live indoors. And I was able to shower. And, like, I was
Right.
grateful for that stuff.
Right.
I was living in my car, like,
Oh, yeah.
for 3 months down here.
Did you ever get that car back?
No.
Okay.
But I was living in my car down here, you know, so, like, living indoors was kind of nice.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, I had this, like, really insane level of gratitude towards, like, everything I had taken for granted my entire life. You know, like, I met some pretty cool friends. I had a
That's
job.
amazing.
Like, I moved up at the car wash. I was an assistant manager there for a while. They put me on salary. I was just like, geez, like,
Wow.
if I told you what I was doing not only 6 months ago, you know, I had keys to the building. I was opening up keys to the safe. I was like, if you only
Amazing.
knew,
Yeah.
you know. But I was like super, super appreciative. You know, I would tell people, I would, like, meet someone, let's say in early sobriety, and I would tell them I'd get comfortable with them and tell them what had happened, they're like, we don't believe you.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's crazy, right?
Right, because I started to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. My, I don't know, I was probably about a year sober, and I had gone through the steps, and I was like, my life was really starting to kind of get some traction. You know, I was riding a bike to work at this point. Like, that's pretty cool. You know, I didn't have a bike. Like, I was like, this bike's great, you know? And my brother's wife, who I had known only in active addiction, came down with my brother and some family, and we were talking on the beach, and she's like, it's really nice to meet you. And I was like,
that's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
That actually got me a little emotional.
Yeah, because she didn't know. I mean, I was this shell of a human when I met her. You know, I was.
But they all really forgave you once they saw that you were kind of doing what you needed to do and staying sober.
Yeah, and I had made amends to a lot of people, and my family was great. You know, I'd slowly gotten their trust back, and, you know, they're still great at holding boundaries, but, like, you know, just being able to talk to mom or dad, you know, like, they weren't willing for a while. They were like, you know, we want nothing to do with you if you're going to continue on this path.
Right.
So that got super cool. You know, I was working out a divorce at this time when I was getting sober, you know, so that was kind of heavy, but, like, I knew it was like a chapter that had closed in my life. And, you know, I still to this day have this relationship with my daughter where we Skype a few times a week, or FaceTime now. She got a phone.
Yeah. That's so nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. You know, I wouldn't trade this for the world. I mean, my life is great. I mean, I have a significant other today who I met in sobriety. We've been together like 5 years. She's my rock.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she holds me accountable. She tells me I'm an idiot just when I need to hear it. You know? Yeah. And I do the same for her.
Right.
You know, we hold each other to a very high standard, super supportive. I'm still living indoors, which is great. That's pretty cool. I have a car. You know, it's like these small things that are just like, this is what I love today.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's so crazy. People always want extra and more, and yes, more, sometimes extra and more is nice.
Yeah.
But it's like you can appreciate it so much more today because you worked for it.
Everything I have
from
today.
Scratch.
Nothing was handed to me this time around.
Right.
You know,
my parents similarly paid for my halfway for like the first couple months, and the treatment center we had gone to told me just the key is don't accept any money from your parents. And my parents didn't really have any money to give me, but they would have.
Sure.
Because that's how they knew how to show love.
Yeah.
The only thing I did accept was when they came down to visit me. We went to CVS, and I think I bought like 25 shampoos. Like, I stocked up for like 2 years.
Right.
But
why not?
so I really had to work for everything, and I started with like one of those sobriety jobs kind of thing, and then kept going. And it's so cool to know where I've come. I mean,
because our timelines match.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I think you had stayed sober since the beginning, but like I had fallen back. But still, like, you know, we met each other when we were in this similar space, and now like we stay in contact today, and we're in a very much similar space today. And it's super cool to kind of see that. Like, I can meet someone with 6 or 7 or 30 years. Like, I don't know where they were back then. Like, sitting across the table from you right now is like surreal, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no way, shape, or form that we should be in this position today.
I know.
Because the odds they're not there.
I know, it's incredible. You know, people hear like the 10% statistic.
Right.
Isn't that what it is?
Something,
10 to 12%?
you hear it, 5, 10.
And
something.
to think like, wow, I'm a part of the 10 to 12%. Do people know that I was like sleeping in my car in Brooklyn with the windows open?
Right.
You know, and oh God, what else? You know, so many other things that it's just, you know, how lucky, how blessed.
Yeah.
You know, and I do believe in God today, and, you know, it might look different from like a religious God that people believe in, but I know that I couldn't be here today without a higher power, you know?
Right.
So I think it's incredible to just have shifted so much in mindset and everything.
Right. Because even when I was out there getting high, I didn't believe in a God, but I would talk to him. It was really weird.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, God, get me out of this. I won't, you know, I'd like make
Oh.
deals with them.
Well,
but
that's,
like, and then I'd
that's
be like,
called
I don't,
foxhole prayers, I think. I did those too.
but I didn't believe in a God at that point, but I'd still talk to him.
I believed in metaphysical things.
Yeah.
I thought I was like very, I was like, I feel spirits around me. Well,
Yeah, that
maybe
was
it's
the
because
crack.
I'm on 10 different drugs, you know?
Right.
But I remember that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. There's something there. There's something in a foxhole prayer that now today I don't do foxhole prayers. I'm actually like praying for other people.
Right.
Something
I
there.
hated
There's something
this
in a
person
fox.
for a long time, but like I'm very much into the big book. I'm very much like, and it's like scripture. It's like, if it's not in there,
I still recite the same third step prayer.
right, right.
Every single day. I like that prayer. It resonates with me.
Yeah.
I haven't switched it up. I don't need to invent a new. People are like, oh, you know, I want to invent your own.
Right.
Fine, but
Yeah.
that's so much work to do.
Right.
Like everything's laid out here. Like
Yeah.
I don't have to think too much about it.
No.
I just have to attend.
Right.
So that's how I see it. But
Yeah, and you know, for me, you know, getting back to what you kind of just brought up, like staying sober in treatment was easy for me.
right.
You know,
Same.
the work starts when I get out, and I've proven to myself time and time again, when I get out of that treatment environment, I go right back to using. You know, so for me, it's like when you get out of treatment, that's when, you know, the real work starts, and you know, this last time, that's what I dove into. Like, you know, treatment's great. You know, it gives you some time to get removed and get your brain kind of back to somewhere that maybe can understand.
It gives you some time.
Yeah, but like the real work is this 12-step work for me.
Oh, for sure.
And other people, you know, I've heard of a lot of different ways that people do it, but for me, it's the 12-step work. It's staying in the middle. It's going through your steps, working with sponsees, spreading the message.
Definitely, and I do think that there are more than one way to recover.
Mhm.
I don't
Of course.
knock
Yeah.
anyone's way.
Yeah.
For me, 12 steps is very pivotal, very important. I also, though, have sought other things. Like I see a therapist, I have a coach. You know, I do a lot of other stuff that just like I want to take it to the next level. It's
Right.
no longer about not drinking or not
Right.
doing drugs. It's about like what's next.
Right.
You know, and I love that feeling of what's next.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting because I don't know what's next.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
And kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So tell me, you mentioned the 12 steps, and so what else today, aside from a 12-step program, what else today do you do? You know, what does that look like for you? What does it look like to stay sober?
Yeah.
You have bad days. When you do, what do you do? You know?
Yeah, no, I do. I do have bad days. You know, things happen. Life comes at me fast. I actually, you know, interestingly enough, I had kind of gotten away from AA this year, you know, just because life showed up. It was like I was going to, you know, my sweet spot is usually either between 1 or 2 meetings a week. And like it was turned into like 1 or 2 meetings a month, maybe.
That's happened to me.
Yeah. And like,
It ebbs and flows, I think.
and I'm so grateful for that because I understood that like I wasn't happy and I needed this almost like reset or this something to come up where like to remind myself that like I need this. Like I need AA more than AA needs me. You know?
They do need you too.
Yeah, but like I need it.
But
You know.
that's happened to me too, and actually it was recently, so maybe it's in like the 6th or 7th
Yeah.
year that happens, I don't know, but definitely I was struggling with me, and I would share that at meetings when I would go, and
Yeah.
I'm not connecting, you know, I really want to stay connected, but I'm not
Right.
connecting, and, you know, throwing myself into this podcast, and you know, I ask people, I reach out to some people, I'm like, please ask me to chair, because I need something to force me to go.
It's God working in my life.
Yeah, and you know, I love AA. I say I'm, you know, my program is AA. I know there's a lot of other 12-step
Right.
programs, but I also think it is important to enrich and to
100%.
you know, do more than just that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into like a lot of nature stuff. I do a lot of fishing,
Okay.
snorkeling. I play pickleball now like an old person.
You do?
I do.
Oh no.
And just kind of like take, you know, for me, especially this year too, it's like taking time for myself, you know, like I got in this role, right, to me, I think in sobriety, my natural role is this like hero provider type role, where I feel a lot of people come to me with issues or, I need some help. And like, to me, it's like, I need to sometimes pause and be like, I need some help instead of me being, the one who helped. Maybe I need to take some time for myself, right? Those boundaries apply to me too. Like I need to, set a boundary for myself, or I need to, some time to like refill my cup, right?
Yeah.
Like, before I can kind of give it out. And this year has taught me that. I've really set some time aside for myself to kind of refill that spiritual cup they talk about, right? And it's been transformative for me. It enables me to be a better helper, be a better significant other, be a better family member, friend,
Good.
employee.
That's amazing. I feel the same way. I think that the past year is similar for me to just realizing that like finding balance I call
huge.
it. Like finding balance. I remember my second or third year sober, I was like, miss 12 step. Like, if you don't go to 6 or 7 meetings a week, are you even sober?
Right.
Oh, I was Judge Judy.
Right. Show me that. Show me where it says that in the book.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. And then I shifted and things start to change and I grow and I realize like, oh, wait, that's not the only way. And there's other ways and there's so much more. And there's a lot of service work involved in my life now, but at one point it was almost too much. Like I didn't spend any time with myself.
Right.
And so I think that finding that balance is so important. Like helping others, hanging out with yourself, with your significant other,
Right.
and doing all that.
No, huge. And I work in treatment.
Yeah.
I have been for the last few years.
How is that?
I love it. I love it. Wouldn't trade it for the world at this point in my life. But it's taught me this really important lesson that I need to separate, even though I work in treatment, like that's not my recovery. I need to separate that out and still be able to take time for myself, do the service work you just mentioned, time for myself to get away, because like the last thing I want to do is burn out on this stuff. If I just work in treatment and talk about treatment all day or talk about AA all day, like I need to, again, draw that line, draw that boundary and find these extracurricular activities that I can get into. And I have, and I really, I have this great balance in my life. I do,
I love that.
It's about living in the middle.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm a man of extremes and living in the middle is not natural, but it's where I need to be.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to share?
I don't know. We covered quite a bit. I've loved this, by the way.
Oh, good.
This has been super cool. No, I don't know. What about your side? Do you have anything?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you can go back and tell your younger self, you get to choose what age, and tell your younger self something, what age would it be and what would you say?
Oh, goodness, that's a great question.
Apparently it is a great question.
Right, because, there's so many answers. Just to trust, I think, in the process. If on paper, like, I could look at my life and say, like, I've went wrong 100 different times. But, like I can honestly sit in this chair and say, like, I wouldn't trade any piece of it, because I wouldn't have ended up in this really cool place that I'm at.
Right.
Do I still have regrets? 100%. But if I didn't do that, would I end up in the place I am today? No. It's probably the answer. So I don't know. Just, I guess, to have a little more trust in myself. I was like very, kind of, didn't have much self-esteem and self-confidence, and maybe a little more of that I could have used as a young man.
Right.
Instead of, like inflating it and showing the world this false sense of pride or ego, maybe just to be a little more humble.
Yeah, I like
A little more
that.
present.
It's so funny because for the first time, I ask that question with every guest. For the first time, I was thinking to myself, but would we listen?
Right.
Everyone would go back and say something, but I mean, people told me that, oh, your 30s are the best age. Late 30s are the best age. Now I know that. But in my 20s, I was like, oh no, my life is going to be over. So would I have even listened at those things? Who knows? But
What about yourself? How would you answer that?
I think something similar. I think I would have said to myself, like, it's okay, you know, it's okay to not feel right. You know, because I always felt, I think, from a young age, for no reason. I mean, my family provided, and you know, I definitely had siblings where we fought and all that normal stuff, but I always felt like out of place.
Right.
You know, and even when I was like hanging out with the crowds, and my whole high school, we were all good friends actually, but we were a close-knit year, I would say, but I still felt out of place. Even with my friends, I felt out of place. So it's funny.
It's a common theme with a lot of us.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think it's an anxiety thing.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Anxiety or trauma.
A doctor can tell us one day, or a therapist.
Hopefully.
We'll leave that to them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But thank you so much for coming. I'm so happy. This was awesome.
This is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to do, okay. He's going to do his thing. Well, let's hug.
Yeah.
Okay.